What's up, Grizzlies fans? Meghan, Triplett, Mike, Wallace, Chris Vernon, and today is just not an ordinary Monday because the schedule just dropped. And we have exciting news. For 48 hours starting right now, single game tickets are on sale. Only for 48 hours. Purchases must be made by Wednesday, August 14th at midnight. But first, Mike, looking at the schedule, What stood out to you the most?
Obviously the game one, the beginning of the Taylor Jenkins and the Ja Morant era at Miami, and then you come back 2 days later on the 25th and you play the Chicago Bulls. So that jumps out. I mean, it's a brand new team, brand new energy, a lot of young guys. Ja Morant, as I said before, Brandon Clark, first round picks. And then you're bringing back, all rookie first team members. And it's one of those situations where this team is going to be exciting. And then you go a little bit further into November and you look at November 15th, Mike Conley comes back. That's going to be an emotional game for the Grizzlies when Mike Conley comes back as one of the franchise pillars. And then you keep going deeper into the schedule. What is important to me is the MLK game. And you have number 1 versus number 2. The New Orleans Pelicans comes in to visit and they play against the Memphis Grizzlies. So you're looking at the top 2 picks in the draft. Ja Morant, obviously, and Zion Williamson. And then after that, Chris, it's when does the big fella come back with the ring? Marc Gasol, he comes back in March. It's the first of a home-and-home with the Toronto Raptors, the defending champions. And so when you go through the schedule like that, those are the ones that jump out to me.
For me, there's a couple things I always look for. First is, what are the doubleheaders? Because those are huge Saturdays down at the Forum. And it just so happens on November 23rd, the Tigers are going to be playing against Ole Miss that afternoon. And then that night, it's Grizzlies-Lakers, which will be that team coming to town for the first time, which will be absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you'll have 18,000 people in the arena twice on that day, so it'll be a huge day for basketball around here. The other one is, who do they play 3 times? And they only catch 1 home game against the Clippers, which that's going to be one of the premier teams in the NBA. Vegas has them as the favorite to win, so if you only catch 1, that makes that even bigger. And then Portland, they only catch 1 time, which is another good team. In terms of on the road, they only play on the road once at Golden State, and they only played on the road once at the T-Wolves. Both of those teams, they play 2 games at home, but only 1 on the road. The last half of November is absolutely ruthless. Starting with that Conley game, the return, which, by the way, is on ESPN, and the irony of them finally putting the Grizzlies on ESPN and Mike Conley on ESPN for his return here when he played 100 years here and they would never feature him is quite unbelievable. But I'm glad that, you're going to get a big stage for the Conley return here, which will certainly be a hero's welcome. But that starts off a stretch that is absolutely insane. And just on first glance of the schedule, you notice it. They play Utah, Denver, Golden State, 3 games in 5 days. Then they have a very short break, and then they play Lakers, at Indiana, Clippers, Utah. So first is 3 games in 5 days. Then they have the little break, 4 games in 7 days. Only 1 of them is on the road, but every one of those games is absolutely brutal. And then the last one is how many weekend games there are. A bunch of the premier games are on the weekends. Both the Lakers games are weekend games. The Conley return's a weekend game. The Gasol return is a weekend game. The Giannis, the one trip the reigning MVP makes, is a weekend game. And then the other Pelicans game, besides Martin Luther King Day, which, look, they absolutely, the best you could have possibly asked for is what they got on Martin Luther King Day, which is one that everybody looks for, which is the Pelicans.
January 20th MLK game. 4 o'clock, TNT, one of 2 nationally televised games for the Grizzlies.
Well, it's number 1 versus number 2 picks.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, when the schedule comes out, the big question is always, did the NBA address the scheduling concerns every year? How would you all grade that?
Oh, I think very well. I mean, look, you're trying to pack 82 games into a finite amount of time. There's only so many ways you can do it, but this number of back-to-backs is much less than they used to have, and the Grizzlies are always one of those teams that typically gets the raw end of the deal because they're not on national TV all the time. They give you extra time if you're playing a lot of Saturday games, Sunday games, Thursday night games, but in the absence of that, the back-to-backs, I think the back-to-backs is only, what we got?
You got 5 by the end of December. So you got 5 back-to-backs between the start of the season and December 31st.
But I mean, they're right at league average.
Right.
They're right at league average at 13. So, actually 12. They only have 12 back-to-backs.
That's perfect. You're good.
And then you don't have any real long extended road trips. I think you have only 1 road trip that's more than 4, 5, 6 days, somewhere around there. The Grizzlies are centrally located, so they hit out east, they come back, they hit out west, they come back. And when you look at the first 2 road trips of the season, they're 1 game, 1-off trips. The first one to Miami, and then the next week they go out to LA for 1 game. So, you know, again, it's some of that jumping around, but at the end of the day, this is the kind of schedule that's conducive to a young team trying to find its way early on.
All right, so we're a little bit over 2 months before the season starts, and we're all excited. So make sure 48 hours only single game tickets are on sale. Purchase them by Wednesday, August 14th by midnight. Go to grizzlies.com for all the information. Always stay tuned, follow along. Grizzlies on Twitter, Instagram, and Grind City Media.